the key thing with a reshuffle is to get the choreography right, because you have to be calling people in a line, they have to arrive at the right time. You can't sort of give someone a job that someone else had, so you have to do the sort of firing before. And it's yes, it's quite a tricky piece of choreography.
Let's look into the future, because today is reshuffle day yet again, Groundhog Day. We've got a new Prime Minister. And we're lucky enough to be joined by Baroness Kate Fall, who was the Deputy Chief of Staff to David Cameron in the David Cameron government. Good afternoon, Kate.
Good afternoon, Ed. Thanks for having me.
It's very nice to have you on. Now, Kate, you were Deputy Chief of Staff to David Cameron. You've seen many a reshuffle inside at Downing Street. I promised earlier when I was introducing my show that we wouldn't disappear down a rabbit hole and spend the whole time discussing why on earth you never put me in the cabinet.
As you know, it was the Prime Minister who didn't put me in the cabinet.
I mean, did the post-it note with my name fall off the whiteboard? Is that what happened?
You were a very senior member of the team, Ed. Most people think you were in the cabinet, so I think we should stop having this conversation, especially in public, because I think you just downgrade yourself in most people's eyes.
Yes, that's true. We don't want to remind people that I wasn't in the cabinet. And people are already texting you in, I can hear on your phone, saying, why are you being given the third degree by advocacy? So talk me through a cabinet reshuffle. In my experience with David Cameron and his government, and also, obviously, you had the whole thing of the coalition, which made it all even more interesting. They were at least efficiently and cleverly done. In fact, somebody was remarking that Sajid Javid was the first cabinet minister of Asian heritage to enter the British government. You thought these things through in terms of the balance between men and women and in terms of how you promoted people. So, and it was presumably a slice and dice between Cameron, Clegg, Osborne, etc.
That's right. I mean, I think the first thing to say is your government speaks to what you're trying to do. It marks the moment. It sets up what your priorities are. And right now, of course, that unity is the key message. So it will be interesting to see, won't it, how he balances loyalty and those who didn't support him, but he wants to bring the party together. And that is something, by the way, Ed, we haven't seen for quite a long time, because Liz, of course, went for completely a tribal cabinet, and Boris also, his cabinets were very tribal. So it would be extremely good to see a cabinet that reflected the different sort of, in a way, views and geographies of the party, but also some fresh faces. Would be good to see too. But yeah, they are complicated businesses. And by the way, the key thing with a reshuffle is to get the choreography right, because you have to be calling people in a line, they have to arrive at the right time. You can't sort of give someone a job that someone else had, so you have to do the sort of firing before. And it's yes, it's quite a tricky piece of choreography.
You get fired in the House of Commons and appointed in Downing Street.
Indeed. And partly, by the way, that is to spare people's blushes. I mean, you don't want people who serve their country, good people who have to have the embarrassment of walking in the front door of number 10 with all the cameras outside saying, what job are you going to get? And then find that they walk out again and they haven't got a job, they've been fired. So the normal, the traditional way is to pull people into the Commons, to the Prime Minister's office in the Commons, for those who don't know, and have a quiet word the night before. Now, that doesn't always happen. I mean, I remember when Theresa May took over as Prime Minister, she left George Osborne sort of sitting upstairs waiting to see if he was going to have a role, which I think maybe she probably regrets now, because it wasn't a very dignified way to deal with someone who'd served their country, and it did set him up as a bit of a, not an enemy, but he wasn't the
Did you ever appoint someone by mistake or forget to appoint someone?
No, not by mistake, but I tell you what can happen sometimes. Occasionally someone says no.
Oh, that's so
And
annoying.
then, of course, you've got this very well thought out structure of how you're going to put people all in their jobs, and then you have a no, which the dominoes suddenly sort of stop moving. And that was a disaster. It was probably our thought. We tried to get Liam Fox back into the government, but maybe we didn't put him in a role that he felt was senior enough for him. and he said no. So that was quite tricky. And once or twice, I was involved with, David Cameron giving a job to someone, and they said, "No, I really don't want that job." And again, that is quite tricky.
And doesn't David Cameron just say, "Well, tough. That's the only job, and if you don't like it, you can lump it."
Well,
I mean, the trouble is, David was too nice to people.
No, well, in that particular incident, and I won't name names, I think that the head of communications and I had to have words about what a very great honour it was to do this particular job, and the person did leave number 10 shortly afterwards.
Actually, that's a nice segue. How much influence do the advisors have? So if you're a keen MP, keen to get on the rung of the ladder, who do you suck up to? Apart from the Prime Minister, you suck up to the Chief Whip, but do you try and suck up to the number 10 spads? I mean, do people come and suck up to you, Kate, when you were Deputy Chief of Staff, in the hope that you would...
Endlessly. No, I mean, on a serious note, we did our reshuffles in a very, very tight group. So it was really just the Prime Minister, then David Cameron, George Osborne, the Chief Whip, Chief as he or she is known outside, and then Ed Llewellyn and I, the Chief and Deputy Chief. But it wasn't really more than that. And then maybe a bit later, we would bring in the Principal Private Secretary, who because the officials are brilliant at managing these complicated events and making sure everything runs on time.
And did you ever stick your oar in? I mean, did David say, "Look, I want to appoint Joe Bloggs," and you would say, "Oh no, you must be joking," and quietly this poor person's career was killed?
Absolutely all tried very hard to stick our oar in, and sometimes successfully and sometimes less so. And sometimes it was a bit like Game of Thrones, the board game, when people would be moving forward. But look, that makes it sound a bit trite. I mean, the truth is it's a very, very important moment. And we would try to think of, what does this show about the government? What does it show about our priorities? What does it show about the sort of people we are? Do we have a diverse cabinet? Is it left and right, north and south? All that sort of thing. Are there enough women? And all that sort of thing. So it is an important moment. It's a complicated moment, and then it does create bad will, as people get fired and they don't like that.
I have to say, I don't want to give the impression that the David Cameron government was very, very posh, but a minister who shall remain nameless once told me the story of being fired by David Cameron. And David Cameron was far too kind of emollient and woe is me and it's not me, it's you. Or it's not you, it's me, rather. But he said he'd got his first day shooting for 2 years, and David Cameron rang him up in the middle to sack him. And he was so keen to get back to his shooting. He said, no, it's absolutely fine, I'm going, that's no problem. And David Cameron insisted on talking endlessly about what a brilliant minister he'd been and how sorry David was to see him go, etc. Well, all the time he was just trying to get him off the phone. Anyway, I'm sure that will confirm in time.
There weren't that many like that in the cabinet.
I never...
And as you just said, they got the shooting member of the cabinet just got fired, so...
Very good. Kate Fall, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's lovely to see you. See you in the House of Lords in a minute.